Take it away.
Good evening, everyone. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to Toastmasters. I would like to first have our facilitator show you once again how to pull up the evening agenda and share that with you.
Sure, let me go ahead and do that. In order to do that, I need to share my screen briefly. First, starting from the Dallas Singles Toastmaster website, let me take this down out of the way. Starting from the Dallas Single or Social Distancing Toastmasters website, click on the members section over here. In the members section, among other things, if you ever need to find them, this is where all of the scripts for all of the duties are. But further down, you'll find club flyers and announcements. If you click on club flyers and announcements, you will find public files, and we have an agenda there for 2020, 0430. And that is where our agenda is for tonight. So feel free to grab a copy of the agenda in your browser, keep it up on the side of your screen so that you can follow along with all of the roles of our participants tonight. Tanya?
Thank you, Mark. So today is April 30th, and in honor of Hairstyle Appreciation Day, I actually combed my hair today. So this is a holiday that we celebrate with a new hairstyle. So I hope you have some ideas of how you too can celebrate. I'm not really sure, they didn't say who created this celebration, but I'm thinking maybe a hairstylist. But also today we should be celebrating International Jazz Day and National Honesty Day, which maybe we're celebrating that because on April 4th, it was National Tell a Lie Day. So maybe to help balance that out, but I'm not really sure why we would be celebrating telling a lie or why we have to acknowledge telling a lie, because I think people probably have that down pretty good anyway. It's also National Raisin Day for you raisin lovers, and National Mahjong Day. If you know how to play Mahjong, the Chinese game, I'm not familiar with it, but believe it or not, today is the day to celebrate that. So this time that we have sheltered in place has really been a challenge with me, keeping up with all of the different holidays and appreciations that have just taken place so far in the month of April. I missed administrative, also used to be called Secretary's Day, Administrative Appreciation Day, and normally I could just walk over to her desk and say, hey, how about I buy you lunch? But you have to really plan for it now that we're sheltering in place and really think about how do you get something great to them. And so I didn't do a very good job of it. Same thing in education, we have principal appreciation and assistant principal appreciation. And so I now owe about 15 assistant principals a treat to honor them for assistant principal appreciation, which took place at the beginning of the month as well too. So it's been a lot to keep up with all these different appreciations and celebrations. And so I just trying to keep track of all these different hallmark occasions that we now have to celebrate in order of something. And so that's one of the challenges that I wanted us to talk about a little bit today. So before we go on to our meeting, I would like for us to introduce our duty holders, and they will tell you their job. First up is Timer Dawn Levy. If you can share with us your duties. You're still muted.
Okay, good evening. Can you all hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay. Hold on. This is going to work or it's not. I'll give it a shot. Otherwise, I'll ditch out. Okay, so I have time cards for tonight. I guess I didn't bring up the whole script, but I'll just wing it. Can you all see the cards?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so The normal timing criteria is a speaker qualifies at 4.5 minutes. I'll show the green card at 5 minutes, yellow card at 6 minutes, and red card at 7 minutes. So leave that on, and then you're disqualified if you go 7 minutes and 31 seconds. For evaluations, green card shown at 2 minutes, yellow card at 2.5 minutes, red card at 3 minutes, and you're disqualified at 3 minutes and 31 seconds. Table topics, you need to go at least 60 seconds, and I'll show the green card, and that's for qualifying. Yellow sign at 1 minute 30 seconds, and red sign goes up at 2 minutes, and you are disqualified if you go for 2 minutes and 31 seconds. And I think that is it for that.
Okay, great.
Back
Thank
to you.
Thank you. And
Dawn,
this
Dawn,
evening-
one quick redirect, Dawn.
Yes.
You said that you get the green at 4.5. You qualify at, I'm sorry, at 4.5. No, you said 4.5. You qualify at 4.5, but don't put the green up until 5.
Okay.
So it's 5, 6, 7. So you put them up at 5, 6, 7, but they actually qualify 30 seconds even before you put up the flag.
Okay, so for the regular speech, they qualify at 4.5.
They qualify at 4.5, but you put up the green at 5.
Got it. Okay, thanks.
Okay,
Mhm.
great.
Sorry for the
Our
interruption.
Sorry. Our next duty holder is Posture Bell, and this evening it's Dagan Newland.
All right, as posture bell, I'll be looking for posture, which is going to be a little more difficult during the situation. But even though most of the time we can only see the top half of people, there's still opportunity for people to play with their faces or glasses and things like that. So I'll be looking out for that. So anything that looks out of the ordinary and distracts from the speech, I'll be making notation throughout the meeting and give my report at the end. Back to you, Toastmaster.
Thank you. And then our odd counter for the evening is Nicholas Elwood. Nicholas?
Thank you, Madam Toastmaster. My duty as the odd counter is to listen carefully for verbal distraction like I just did. Really like, and so, but other filler words and sounds like that. I'm also going to keep track of words that maybe you repeated, like the, I. Lastly, I'm going to keep track of long pauses if they're distracting. If they're not distracting, if they're part of the speech, then we'll continue with that. I'm not going to use a horn, obviously, to notify the speaker. I will just notate it down until really the end of our speech and for our general, after everyone's speech. So after that, I'll evaluate everyone's use of or non-use of filler words. Back to you.
Thank you. Vote counter for the evening is Mark Sims.
Sorry about the late joining. I had to rerun.
Can't hear you. Can't hear you.
As vote counter.
Mark, you are not muted, but you're too silent.
Pardon me?
We can't hear you.
Your volume is down.
Yeah, it's merely volume.
It's got to be microphone volume.
Now you're muted.
Worse. Yeah, that's. Try again, Mark.
Yes, can you hear me now?
We hear a little bit, but it's very, very low.
Okay.
Well, what if you log out and log back in and make a difference?
Okay, we'll continue on and come back. Our grammarian for the evening is Rob.
Thank you, Madam Toastmaster. As your grammarian, I have two duties. One is to introduce the word of the day. And tonight's word is emblem. It is a noun. And the couple of meanings is a picture with a motto, also an object or figure of an object symbolizing or representing another object. So emblem, you'll need to use that word during table topics in order to qualify and compete. And you're encouraged, everybody's encouraged to use the word of the day throughout the meeting, and I encourage you to use it throughout the week. Again, the word of the day is emblem, and I'll try to hold that up during table topics from time to time so that the contestants know to use it. The other part of my duty is to monitor the English language and the usage, the grammar of everybody throughout the meeting, and make notes, and then give a report at the end of the meeting. Back to you, Madam Toastmaster.
Mark?
Yes, can you hear me now?
Better.
Okay, thank you for your patience tonight. This has not been easy so far, but as vote counter, I will count the votes and you will have the opportunity to vote for the best speaker, for the best evaluator, for the best of the table topics competition, and for the best of the big three. You will send me your vote through private chat. I'll tally up the votes. In the event of the tie, I will silently break the tie, and then I will announce the results when called upon at the end of the meeting. Madam Toastmaster.
Thank you. So this year on April 22nd, was Earth Day. Thumbs up if you celebrated Earth Day this year. Awesome, quite a few people. So Earth Day was an opportunity. It started in 1970, I believe. This is the 50th anniversary for Earth Day. Or was it 30th? I'm sorry. And you're supposed to recycle, reduce, and reuse. And so this was really the first time that I celebrated Earth Day because I have my kids and I wanted to keep them busy doing some assignments. So we made a sign and we went and picked up trash in our neighborhood, and I kept saying, turn off the lights in honor of Earth Day. And so really had a good time. But also in April, last Friday, the last Friday of the month is Arbor Day. And so the Arbor Day has been around as a celebration a lot longer. And that's the day that you're supposed to actually go out and plant a tree. So in the month of April, there's many different celebrations that happen, and some are overlapping, but that is one of them, Earth Day and Arbor Day. Also, April, we have religious holidays that we celebrate, which makes sense that we want to honor and celebrate. Those really, I think, are those hallmark moments. We have Passover, Good Friday, Easter, and Ramadan that started this month in April as well, too. So to begin, we're going to go now to our prepared speakers, and we have 2 speeches for this evening. Our first speaker is John Vessels, and the title of his speech is, can you hear me now? Can you hear me now? And his evaluator this evening is Rob Giles. And Rob, can you introduce John Vessels' objectives for his speech?
Indeed. Thank you, Madam Toastmaster. John is working in Pathways, and I believe this is project number 1 from level 2. It is understanding your communication style, and his objectives, or the purpose of the speech this evening, is for him to learn about the different communication styles and identify his primary style. Also, to share with us the impact that his style has had on others. His time frame, his time objective is 5 to 7 minutes. Back to you, Madam Toastmaster.
Thank you. Everyone, please welcome John Vessels.
This is your meeting coordinator. Please make sure, speakers, that you're able to see your timer. Dawn.
Can you hear me now? No, that's not a shout out to the cellular service or just my lack of confusion thinking you can't hear me. Because if I can hear you, I must be able to, y'all can hear me. What it is a shout out for is my topic of the speech tonight, which is communication styles. Communication styles goes down to our ability to share our thoughts and actions and even give commands when necessary. We are the species that uses spoken language more than any other species on the planet, and we are just love to talk. The English language is also the most complex language on the planet because we have such a blend of so many international languages and sources of where our language comes from. We even adopt foreign languages with some of their words and we put them into our English language and make them part of ours. So that's what we're going to be speaking about tonight is communication style, excuse me. There are many different types of communication styles. Depending on who you ask, there are one of them, and one I saw a lot of was passive aggressive, and oh, what's the last one? And authoritative. But then there are also ones that cause dominant. And this is craziness. It's like, can nobody agree on what all the communication styles are? One says 4, now there's 5. This one says there's 9. So I kind of stuck with what I kind of see for myself. What we do have is a way that we need to communicate with others, to make ourselves heard, to make ourselves understood, and to even make us approachable. Now, for example, when I'm at work, I tend to use kind of an authoritative style because when I'm dealing with my end users, when I'm helping them out, I try to get across the fact that this is how something works and this is how something needs to be done. Because we have policies and procedures in place, and when I teach you how my system works, I can teach you how it works, but then I also need you to understand how you need to utilize it. For a lot of times, those people have a hard time grasping it because they're not IT people. And so sometimes these computer things kind of go over their head a little bit. They don't see the logic in it. I tend to see the logic in how things are working, and it just makes sense to me. So I use kind of an authoritative style to let them know what it is. I mean, I'm not mean or aggressive, but I do make them confident that what I'm telling them is the correct answer and how that they need to deal with the situation or how to make the system work that they need to be using. So they are always striving to be better. And if they don't grasp what I'm trying to say, if I'm being too technical, always have an analogous way to tell the story in more, how can I say it, not low-key terms, not really low-key, but I mean a better way to understand, to say, okay, well, if you were walking down the street and you need to take this turn, do this. I mean, rather so to make it easier for them to understand, and I don't have to go over their head and they can't grasp what I'm trying to say because it's too technical. I try to put it into words that they can relate to. And that is one of the ways that I deal with the people and the style that I use sometimes. Now, there are times when I have users that are looking for the shortcut, looking for the workaround, looking for what they think they can do to make my system work. And when I get some of those people, sometimes I kind of have to be a little more aggressive and lay down the law because they will ask me to do something that, or try to do something that is outside of our company policy. Since my system works with scheduling and payroll, there are a lot of FSLA rules and all kinds of rules out there that they have to abide by. Otherwise, we could put the company in big lawsuits over trying to cheat something or trying to twist the system to do what you want. When I deal with them, I have to be a little more aggressive and say, okay, this is going to get you in trouble. I said, this is against policy. You can't do it this way. And I try to be nice, but I just try to explain to them, it's like, we can't do that, and you must do it this way. And I sometimes, I know I come off with those people. There are some people that will call my partner and ask her about some things because they find me too aggressive and not friendly enough, you know, and I get it. Another communication style that I have can be a bit passive at times. When I'm in situations where all these people are talking or meeting and stuff like that at work, and usually it's more casual socialization type thing, and they start telling me all the things that they think or what they believe or what their opinions are. A lot of times I don't care. And it's like, you have a right to that opinion, and that's cool, and that's what I just kind of leave it alone. I don't feel like I have to stand on my soapbox every time somebody says something I don't agree with and have a fight about it. It's just something, it's like, you say you believe the sun doesn't come up in the sky in the east. It's like, oh yeah, well, okay, get your compass. But I like that. I don't always feel the need to push my opinion on everybody, even though it's right. Haha. But they have a right to their opinion. I just let it go. It's not always worth getting into it. So there are a lot of different ways to communicate, whether it varies by me situationally, depending on the needs I need to express, or whether some people I know that are just have one style, and that's it. Everywhere they go, whether it's business, work, pleasure, whatever, they have this one style of communication that they have. That's okay for them too, but that's just the way it is. So in the end, can you hear me now? Are you getting my words, understanding my thoughts and feelings, and working from there? Miss Toastmaster.
Thank you, John. Our next speaker is Lee King, who is speaking. His title is Lessons from Larry Time. And Lee is being evaluated by Mark Sims. Mark, can you please tell us the objectives of Lee's speech?
Yes. Lee is giving a speech about a protege experience, his protege experience. He's going to tell us about the importance and the impact of being a protege. This is going to be more along the lines of his experience. He's not going to be reporting on the content of the project that he's working on. Time is 5 to 7 minutes. Title is Lessons from Larry. Well, Lee King, Lessons from Larry, Lee King.
Good evening, fellow Toastmasters. This is my opportunity today to share with you lessons that I learned from Larry. More importantly, today I will be sharing with you about the mentor process and the difference between a coach, a mentor, and what is a protege. First, let's talk briefly about what a coach is. A coach is someone that, as identified by Toastmasters International, is a person who helps somebody accomplish a single goal, usually for a very short period of time, and limited number of times in which you interact with the person. So for example, if your goal is to maintain better eye contact while working on Zoom, you may find someone that excels really well in their eye contact working with Zoom, and they would be your mentor. They will work with you through that time until you either accomplish that goal or you no longer have to use Zoom, for example. I'm sorry, that is a coach. The coach is a person that is used for a short period of time for just a couple of goals. A mentor is someone that will help you for a long period of time. Sometimes the amount of time that you'd be working with the mentor might be an indefinite amount of time, and you would work on a lot of different things. So today I'm really going to focus more on the mentor relationship that I had back as a volunteer when I worked in the hospital when I was in high school. I worked on a rehab floor, and I worked very closely with a recreational therapist, and his name was Larry. And I was very fortunate to work with Larry for about 7 years up until he got laid off. And our relationship continued. I ended up becoming a full-time employee and working full-time. But even though I was no longer a volunteer, and even though at times I worked on a different floor, I would still go up to Larry and work with him on different things and get his opinion on things. What did I learn most from Larry, though? Well, there are definitely 3 things that I learned very well from Larry. First, the importance of interpersonal communication, the ability to interact with other people and get a sense of where they're coming from and what their important points of the day are. Sometimes that's different than what yours are. The other thing that I learned from Larry is just patience, the ability to have a schedule, but learn how to take time and change your schedule if you need to. If a patient's having a really bad day, or you need to spend more time with a patient, how to work that into your very busy schedule and not get frustrated. And then the final lesson that I learned from Larry was on how to throw parties. In hospitals, you can imagine nobody wants to be there, but people definitely remember the parties and the celebrations that they can have with other people. Needless to say, as an 18-year-old, I thought of parties as something totally different than what you might expect in a hospital. But Larry taught me how to have very good parties. And to this day, if the opportunity does present itself, I will always try to find a way to have a party with my patients. For example, I've been known to work on New Year's Eve or New Year's Day, and perhaps the party that we will have is having grape juice instead of wine and some cheese, or some grape juice and some other type of snack, but something that represents wine. Or perhaps maybe even the sparkle cider. But there's always something, there's always some way that you can interact with your patients and have some type of a party atmosphere, some way to get them out of feeling like they're in the hospital. And that's one very important thing that I learned from Larry. But I'll never forget the time that Larry would spend with me. And even if there were those days that I didn't understand something or I needed extra time to talk to him, he always seemed to find the time to do that. And I'm so thankful to this day to have had that opportunity to have that person that could find that time. And because of that, I always feel like I am able to adjust my schedule. And then finally, definitely, most importantly, it's just the patience and how to interact with people and accept that sometimes people are going to be overcritical. People are going to be very grouchy, but you have to just plug on through. So if I learned nothing else as a volunteer when I was in high school, I learned those 3 lessons from Larry. First, patience. Second, how to rearrange your schedule. And then finally, how to throw a good party. Back to you, Madam Toastmaster.
Thank you, Lee. Now at this time, you can vote for the best speaker. We had John.
Timer.
Oh, sorry. Now, timer report. Don, did everyone meet their time?
Yes, sorry. Do you want the exact time? Or just
No,
if they qualify? Sorry, I'll go inside.
It's okay, thank you. So now you can vote for the best speaker. We had John Vessels with Can You Hear Me Now? And Lee King with Lessons from Larry Time. And you can send your vote to Mark Sims. who will be collecting the votes. And also, if you want to provide some feedback and encouragement to the speakers, you can send that to them as well at this time. So April 10th was Siblings Day. And I noticed on Twitter and Facebook, a lot of people posting pictures of their siblings in honor of Siblings Day. I did not celebrate Siblings Day. My oldest brother, his birthday is actually in April. I feel pretty good when I actually remember to celebrate his birthday. And so I did not celebrate Siblings Day. But my concern about the amount of holidays and celebrations is because it seems like all month long we're celebrating and it's hard to keep up with. For example, just in the month of April, we have School Librarian Day. Then we have Library Workers Day, which is a separate day. School Librarian Day is April 4th. Librarian Workers Day is April 21st. And then National Library Day is April 16th. And then on top of that, we celebrate National Library Week, which is April 19th through the 25th. So that's a lot to keep up with just for one segment of the society, our librarians. Now, don't get me wrong, I love a librarian just like everybody else, but maybe we could just combine and just celebrate libraries and all the good work that our librarians and library workers do on the same day. So maybe we could actually honor them in the way that they're supposed to be honored. Now we're going to go into our table topics, and our topics master for the evening is Mark Schroeder.
Thank you, Tanya. All right, so as table topics, we've got a couple of things that I have to remind everyone of just to make sure that you remember. First of all, of course, table topics is extemporaneous speaking, so you're going to be speaking off the cuff. I'm going to ask some questions and just call on people, not quite at random. I'm going to call on people who don't have large speaking roles first, of course, but I will call on people without knowing that they're going to be called on, so to make everybody sweat a little bit first. You have 1 to 2 minutes to speak. You are required to at least reach the 1 minute mark. You will then be allowed up to 2:30. You will get the red at 2, but if you go past 2:30, you will be disqualified. You do have to use the word of the day, which, as everybody remembers, but just as a reminder, is the word emblem. So you need to use that word as well as meet your time in order to qualify for our award today. I'm going to start off with questions that are in kind of the same sort of theme. As you just noticed, Tanya's been talking about a lot of effectively hallmark holidays or invented holidays or created holidays. I think we all probably have our own favorites, whether it, for me, it would be something like National Beer Day or Pizza Day, or even, in fact, perhaps Donut Day. So the question would be, do you happen to have a favorite hallmark holiday? And if you do, what is it? If you do not, why don't you have one? This question is going to go out to Dagan Newland.
All right, so my favorite holiday, we don't really keep up with holidays much. So, but I will have I'm sure there's one out there. It's probably National Beard Day. Because, look at this beard right here. I've been growing out for a while. It's just last November. I've always had a beard for a while, honestly. But since November, I stopped cutting it. So this is my growth since no shave November. So it's coming on pretty nice. And I'm actually going to try to get a little bit longer before I start trimming it. But I really enjoy it. I've actually started watching a lot of YouTube videos and stuff like that on how to take care of a beard like this. And so I've been learning a lot of information on the right products and what I should get to take care of it properly, and like vitamins, and I got to drink a lot of water to make sure my beard still stays healthy. So there's really no emblem I can associate this with, but all in all, that would be my national holiday that I celebrate all year around is National Beard Day. Back to you, Topic Master.
Thank you, Dagan. And we'll all vote for you when you try to join ZZ Top. No problem. All right, my second question is related, but the antithesis of this. Everyone may have a favorite holiday. Everybody also probably has a holiday that they really hate. I know some people that actually just flat hate Valentine's Day. They think it's completely ridiculous. I've had admins that weren't really in favor of Admin Day because I felt like, yeah, one day out of 365, what is that for me? Do you happen to have a disliked Hallmark holiday, or for that matter, a disliked true holiday? And what is that? This question will go out to Mark Sims.
There is one holiday that comes to mind, and while I don't wear an emblem on my shirt around this time saying I'm opposed to St. Patrick's Day, personally, I've always thought that was a silly holiday. For starters, everyone, whether they have anything to do with Ireland or Irishmen or not, always use the term St. Paddy's Day as if it's totally meaningful to them. And then in addition, the whole purpose of celebrating this day seems to be drinking, which, I mean, what people drink or don't drink is totally their own business, but you can drink any day of the year. You don't need a special holiday, whether it's New Year's or St. Patrick's Day, to have a drink if you're so inclined. It seems almost, I guess, a commercial event, and it has turned into a very nice cultural event in Dallas where they do have a nice parade, which attracts a lot of people. I know because once I accidentally got caught up in the traffic and learned my lesson. So if you are of Irish descent, then please accept my apologies. If not, then hey, drink whatever you want to, but what is the deal with St. Patrick's Day? Mr. Table Topics Master.
Thank you, Mark. For what it's worth, I came back on Dart Rail from downtown on St. Patrick's Day, which of course was a parade early in the morning. Turns out I was coming back at about 6 or 7 p.m. and people were still coming back from that parade and so sloshed. There was one particular gentleman, 20s, two young ladies with him. He had one of them literally thrown over his shoulder because she was incapable of walking and he was hoping she was not going to throw up on him. The other one was complaining about having lost her phone on Dart and was trying to figure out how in the world she was going to contact Dart to get her phone back, as if that was ever going to happen. So it was at least interesting people watching that day. Oh, and Mark, Slancha. So, sorry, I'm German. What is that? What do I know about any of this stuff? My next question. This one, I have to admit, this is going to be a touch of a thinker, but that's okay. Every once in a while, we need those. We're now going through COVID-19, the pandemic, and we're going to need some way to remember this going forward. I think we're going to need a national either COVID-19 or perhaps just a national pandemic day. We don't have to pick particularly which day it's going to be because, of course, it has kind of smeared across at least a couple of months here and will continue. But what are we going to celebrate that day and how are we going to celebrate it? And this question is going to go to, sorry, Nicholas, you're it.
Thank you, Mr. Table Topics Master, for giving me the hard question of the day. Gets me some time to think and share my insight on what I think about the pandemic and how we should celebrate it. In other words, I don't think we should really celebrate this pandemic by any means. I rather think we should at least remember it in university or make it part of a history class for, 6th grade, 7th grade, 8th grade onwards, maybe even for 5th graders if they want to remember how boring and how insightful and how thoughtful this pandemic was. I think that I would paint myself in a bad light and have an emblem of somewhat animosity if I tried to say we should celebrate this somehow. It's tough. It's tough to pick which day we could celebrate it on too. Maybe a really bad time of the year. Maybe like the very beginning. Sorry, any January birthdays, beginning of January, or sometime in another month that we can all think of that we don't like, and just want to pick one of those days, and we'll slap a pandemic day on there. But in any case, I think it should rather be taught in universities. Long story short, back to you, Mr. Table Topics Master.
Thank you, Nicholas. You know, one thought I had on that with regard to that, coincidentally, Earth Day obviously occurred during the same period, and people have noticed that pollution has cleared up in a lot of the cities where there's no longer any traffic, no longer any congestion, no longer any manufacturing going on. Perhaps that almost might be one of the best ways to commemorate it, as the fact that we actually had an Earth Day that was good for the Earth during the pandemic, when people took responsibility for some of those things. I don't know.
That's a really good point, and certainly I do agree with that, and I didn't think of that.
Well, it was just one of those things that I thought of as we were talking about. I don't even know that I even thought about it coming up on this meeting, but when she mentioned starting off with Earth Day, it did occur to me that yes, it did cross at the same time.
About a National Shot Day, people have they have a chance to go get a shot for the COVID-19 or
There you go.
anything like that.
National Vax Day.
Or,
Yeah.
or you can either get those kind of shots, or you can take shots of cleaning solution to clean yourself out.
We can switch it for St. Patty's Day. We can just delete St. Patty's Day.
Yeah, I've already seen a T-shirt that just says "shooting rocks," and all it's got is a picture of Clorox in the back with a hypodermic.
National Clorox Day.
National Clorox Day, yeah. All right, one more question, and this one's going to take a touch of coordination with the person that I'm going to ask, because I'll warn you, Dawn, I'm going to take over for you on this one. Dawn, this question is going to go to you, and I'm going to do my best to get you the red, green, yellow. Make sure that you can keep me visible, okay?
Okay, sure.
All right, so the question is going to be, sorry, bad luck. Your birthday is coming up in about a week, and you're not going to be able to do any of your birthday plans. And this is like one of the big ones, one of the ones that ends in a 5 or a 0. What are you going to do? How are you going to deal with that? Are you going to delay it? Are you just going to say my birthday didn't happen? You're going to celebrate it next year, the first time you can? What are you going to do to celebrate your birthday when your real one was in quarantine?
Okay, so I don't know if you're basing this on fact or you're really just guessing, but I guess it doesn't matter. But I'll throw it out there that I really do turn 50 on Monday, so I'm assuming you really knew that. And yeah, I have thought about completely ignoring it because one, I'm turning 50, which not that it's old, but that's a biggie. And two, yes, being sheltered at home, even if the governor says we don't have to, I do feel that yes, we should be still as safe as possible. So what am I going to do? Well, first of all, I've told my children that they better do something, because I know if I don't tell them, then they won't. One of them is down in Austin, so we are actually going to drive down there and get Conan's Pizza. I don't know if anyone's familiar with Austin or Conan's Pizza, but it's pretty much my favorite food. So we're going to drive down there and do that, and we might turn right back around and come back. I'm going to celebrate May birthdays with some friends later. I'm clearly not going to have a party. I think I'm just going to kind of breeze over it. I'm just going to do what I have to do to remind myself that, yes, I'm alive, thank God. And thank you to my parents for, hanging in there with me all this time. Thank my kids, do the best I can. Probably have to cook a cake with my younger son or I won't have one. And just going to kind of make the most of it. I won't do any kind of an emblem or anything to commemorate the occasion. I'll just get through it, and thank God I'm alive. Back to you.
All right, thank you, Dawn. For what it's worth, as you can tell, Yellow, you did manage to meet your time.
Yes. Thank you.
All right, so that is going to conclude all of our table topics speakers for tonight. I'm going to go ahead and recap exactly who was asked which question, but before I do that, let's go and ask how everyone did on time and word of the day. Let's start with our timers.
Sorry. Yes, everybody made their time.
All right, and how did we do on word of the day?
All contestants use the word of the day.
Excellent, we're doing great then. All right, that makes everybody available, or eligible, I should say, for an award tonight. We started off with the question of favorite Hallmark holiday. That question was Dagon's. Least favorite Hallmark holiday went to Mark Sims. The question of turning COVID-19 or the pandemic into a holiday went to Nicholas. And finally, how would you celebrate your birthday if it happened to fall during this time, went to Dawn. Which, by the way, no, Dawn, I did not realize that. Thank you for sharing that. But no, I've got a wife who's hits her 60th on Sunday.
Oh, well, happy birthday to her. I thought you did know because you literally said, what if you were 50? That's pretty.
She's 60.
Oh, you
No,
said.
I said if it ends in a 5 or a 0.
Oh,
Like
okay, got it.
35, 50, 35, 40, 45, yeah.
Got it. Okay. Well, happy birthday to her.
Thank you. Please place your votes in the little chat box to Mark Sims. And with that, I will turn the meeting back over to our general evaluator next. Dagon, are you ready?
Sure. All right. As general evaluator, I will evaluate the meeting as a whole, call upon the duty holders, and also call upon the evaluators to give their evaluations. The first thing we're going to do is call upon our evaluators to give their evaluations of the speakers. The first evaluator is up would be Rob Giles, who's going to evaluate John Vessel's speech. So, Rob, take it away.
Thank you very much, Mr. General Evaluator. Fellow Toastmasters, and especially you, John. I'm going to give you an evaluation, the countdown method, 3 items approximately that I really liked about your speech, a couple that you might think about using, suggestions for adjusting or doing things differently for the next speech, and finally, or that you might want to think about in regard to this speech that you might be able to use down the road. And then finally, something specifically special that I thought you did well at with this, or what you did in this particular speech. So let me start off with the positive things. First, I liked your organization. You came in, you got us glued in with "Can You Hear Me Now?" So great title there. And then you moved into the number of styles that are out there, or that Toastmasters lists. And then you said, but I'm going to talk about a couple, and you went into those 2, and then you summed it back up after you went through that. So I thought the organization was great. Second, I thought you did a great job with content. I thought your choice of using specific things in the content was good because it didn't extend the speech too long, and it consolidated it. So you did a great job with that. You gave us the list, like I said, or you talked about the number. You didn't give us a list, but you talked about the number of different styles, and then you told us the content, the specific styles that you were prone to or that you were good at, which are the authoritative and then also the passive, or the ones that you use, I should say. So I thought you did a great job with that. I thought that you gave us great examples with each of them, talking about how you would change what you were saying in order for your audience to relate. And in this particular case, you were talking about work environment. And lastly, you came up with, you said that your passive style, I don't care kind of style, but then you tried to, you adjusted that and gave us some background on that, in that, you felt it's okay for other people to have different opinions, and doesn't mean that I have to express myself on those. So kind of the I guess, resisting, expressing your feelings that might over or counter somebody else's. So a little extra information there that I liked. A couple of things that I thought that you might consider. Oh, and then one other thing that I did like was that the connection between the opening and then the closing. The opening, you had that, "Can you hear me now?" And then in the end, you brought that back in. So I thought you did a great job. It tied everything together nicely. A couple of things that I thought you could work on or think about. One was maybe briefly mention, and these are small items, but maybe briefly mention a style that you saw that just isn't you and would never be you, or you would never use, and maybe give a brief example of that. Also, perhaps incorporate a tiny bit of PowerPoint with just even the label of the style that we can see. Boom, it gets into our face right away, and then you pull it back. Maybe do that for the styles, then incorporate that a little bit more to kind of, I guess, categorize everything into your speech there. Lastly, I wanted to mention that you actually tied in the leadership style, or part of your leadership style, and how you deal with your coworkers and your IT team. So I thought that was great. You tied in a leadership style with your communication style. So great job tonight, John. Thank you. You're on mute, Dagan.
There you go. Thank you, Mark Schroeder. I saw your message there pop up. All right, so our next evaluator is going to be Mark Sims, who is evaluating Lee King's speech. So take it away, Mark.
Lee, I will evaluate you by using the 3-2-1 method. There are three things, of course, that I liked. One is that the title was very good, Lessons from Larry, as opposed to a more generic how to be a good mentor or how to be a good protege. When I heard the title Lessons from Larry, I was pretty sure I was going to like the speech. I knew it would be specific and meaningful. The structure was very good, very well defined. You had an intro. You talked about the difference between the coach and the mentor, which frankly, I probably would have used interchangeably, but you spelled out the difference in pretty concise terms. You, of course, spent a lot of time talking about the three big things that Larry taught you. And then when you started to sum up, you quickly repeated those items, not going in depth again, but at least repeated them in big picture terms so that you could head into the speech conclusion. Also, the three items that you noted you had learned from Larry were important. They were worth talking about. Very good substance. The importance of communication. Yeah, I guess communication is important. The importance of patience, the tension between you need to be efficient at work in your job, but you need to spend the time with the patients because it's all about them. And then the great contrast, how to throw a party. I was not expecting that, but that was good. Now, I was actually thinking something else, not the parties you had at the hospital, another type of party, the one you wanted to attend when you were 18 years old. But that's very poignant. I've actually read stories about patient parties at a hospital, especially just before someone passes on. Very meaningful. Not much ideas I have to improve on, but one thing is while I heard you describe the difference between coach and mentor, originally you also mentioned protege. I didn't pick up on a definition of protege, although it would have been pretty simple. And then you got our attention when you said that Larry was laid off, which is sad, but you had kept up with him. I almost would have liked to have known, okay, where are you now with Larry? Now, what I really like, the best thing about the speech is the question, did you really believe what you said? I mean, is this meaningful to you? And yes, you can tell it's incredibly meaningful. And it was a mentor relationship, you protege, him mentor, that you benefited from greatly. And so did we. Mr. General Evaluator.
All right, thank you, Mark. All right, before we continue on, I'd like to get a timer's report, and if you can give us if everybody qualified and what their times were.
Oh, sorry, Rob, you did not qualify because you were at 3 minutes and 57 seconds. Mark did qualify at 3 minutes and 10 seconds.
All right, thank you, timer. All right, so now I'll call, well, I guess we don't have to vote now, so, but if you do have any comments for Mark Sims' evaluation, you can send it to him as well. If remember any comments to anybody that's spoken so far, send them a private chat and give them some feedback. So I'm gonna continue on with evaluating the meeting as a whole. So obviously we started a little bit late, which is okay. We're trying to wait on a few more people to log in. And as for the topic, I thought it was a really good topic. Learned about different national holidays and appreciation days, which, of course, as my table topics, I mentioned that I didn't really keep up much with myself. So it's great to know all the information about those different type of holidays and stuff. As for table topics, I thought table topics were great. All the questions I thought were easily answerable. Even that one you said that was, you thought that might take a little more thought. I thought that was really good, and everybody was able to answer the questions, pretty good. The speakers, I think everybody did a great job speaking. Had really good information in their speeches, and that's for you, the evaluations. Rob, I'd like you tell us how you're going to evaluate the speech, and then you also gave great feedback, both constructive and positive. And Mark Sims, I didn't catch you telling us how you were going to evaluate him in the very beginning, but other than that, you also gave great feedback, constructive and positive. So that's about it really for my review of the meeting. So I think we all did a really good job. So I'm going to move on into the duty holders now. And as the first duty holder, I guess I'll talk about posture bell while I'm still talking. As posture wise, obviously that's a very hard to do on these Zoom meetings, but for the most part, I think we did all pretty good. The only thing I had really to call out on was John, while you were speaking, they're more towards the end, you were kind of, rocking back and forth just a little bit, but it's noticeable, but it, made a little distracting. But other than that, everybody did a really good job. So we're going to move on down to the all counter, which was Nicholas. So Nicholas, can you give us your report, please?
Thanks, Dagan. Yes, sir. Everyone did well with their speaking. There weren't many times that they used or ahs. John, I heard once, a couple of times in the beginning of the speech when you were describing your style with talking to different IT prospects or customers. Lee King, all I noticed was when you took a pause when comparing your mentor, Larry. Mark Sims, Dagan used a couple of times, just very, very briefly, minimally, didn't really notice much else. Mark Sims used once, I noticed, and then Don used a couple of times. I believe I used a couple of times as well. So back to you, Dagan.
All right, thank you, Nicholas. And our last duty holder will be our grammarian, Rob Giles. So Rob, can you give us your report, please?
Thank you very much, Mr. General Evaluator. Overall, we had a good use of grammar. I didn't catch much. One thing that I did catch, Nicholas, you were talking about an emblem of somewhat of animosity, and I think your word choice could have changed a little bit, perhaps something of animosity or something of an animosity, something, just a little tweaking there. And we do that a lot. We'll use an adverb or an adjective when we should be using one or the other. So something to think about. Beyond that, I didn't notice any other bad grammar. I did notice a few phrases that I thought were good and funny. One was the "Can you hear me now?" which was really interesting. And I don't know if Mark Sims knew that, but he came into the meeting, "Can you hear me now?" And maybe he coordinated that with John, I'm not sure. That's something that maybe John should have had me do in preparation. But we had some other things as well, some other phrases. John, you used analogous. You used push my opinion. Mark, Sims, and Lee, your title, great lessons from Larry. Very, has alliteration in it, so very interesting in that regard. You said party with patience, use the term grouchy. Tanya, you had said, I love a librarian as much as anyone, or something along those lines, which I thought was kind of funny regarding the numerous librarian holidays or celebrations throughout the month of April. Mark, you had mentioned that Donut Day might be a day that you like. And then you also commented on Dagan's beard and maybe he should join ZZ Top. And he talked about throwing somebody over the shoulder when they're coming back from a long day of partying for St. Patrick's Day. Dagan used the "no shave November" phrase. Mark Sims, what is the deal with St. Patrick's Day? Green mirror, that's the deal. And that's pretty much it. So some good phrases throughout. I appreciate it. And again, beyond the table topics, not really no use of the word of the day. So maybe the table topic contestants could get an emblem for what they did today in regard to that. Back to you, Mr. General Evaluator.
All right, thank you, Rob. So now that concludes my portion of the general evaluation section. So I'll call upon a vote of the big three, which is going to be our Toastmaster, Tanya Howard, our table topics master, Mark Schroeder, or me as general evaluator, Dagan Newland. So please send your private votes to Mark Sims. And I will now turn it over to the business meeting, our president, Lee King.
All right. Well, good evening, everyone. Not a whole lot of business. We've talked about dues. If you have not paid your dues, please be sure to do so by today. Today's the last day, I guess. Tomorrow is the first day of May. Other than that, the only other thing that we really, well, and then also we've got officer elections, and we'll get to that in just a moment. But first, I think what we probably need to spend some time talking about this evening is exactly what we want to do moving forward. And I think we're all familiar with Texas is going through their phase 1 of reopening the economy starting tomorrow. And part of that will be that restaurants can now open. They have to be at 25% capacity or less for between now and the 18th of May. So I think the first thing we need to decide is how much longer do we want to stay virtual versus going to Ozona. Mark has reached out to Ozona. Well, Mark, you want to just kind of tell us what you got back from Ozona?
Yeah, I'll go ahead and it may be a little bit too small, but I will go ahead and share it and then read through it for people. Oh my God, I've got too many. Can I move this over to the side a little bit? Need to move that out of the way. There we go. All right, so I had reached out to Ozonas just to ask the question, and I did this just before the Monday governor meeting or the governor press conference, and the response that I got back was, one way or another, they knew it was something was going to be coming soon. So I figured I'd ask what they were even thinking. And I basically told them that we'd have to talk about it amongst our officers and our members to see what people were comfortable with and the comfort level of our members relative to the current situation. And what we got back was, we totally understand. Unfortunately, we won't know anything until the governor has his press conference this afternoon at 2:30. Once he gives the order to open, most likely we will not be able to have large groups. I would also imagine the staff and guests are required to wear masks, which is going to be real fun for eating. We won't go there. I see staff wearing masks for the unforeseeable future. I also see us seating every other table in the dining room, and a constant team of employees sanitizing everything every hour. It sounds like a nightmare, but it's the world we live in. And that was from Corey, the manager at the time. I have not reached out to them since then. That was what their thought was at the time. Now that they know it's 25%, I will have to do so again to see if they've made a decision. I suspect what they will do may depend upon how their takeout business has been going. They have been open for takeout. There are a lot of businesses that have been really itching to get open because there's been literally no business for them because they've been completely closed if takeout was not an option for them in their kitchens. But if for the businesses that have had some takeout, the question is it worth their time to start up the interior business at only 25% or less and bring in staff to do it? And for some of them it will be, for some of them they may decide still not to, for whatever reason. We will check, but we do need to decide, or at least talk about it amongst ourselves, as to when people might feel comfortable with doing it again. I'll let you take over from there.
Okay, so what are y'all's initial thoughts? How do we want to go about this?
Well, like the email says, that they probably won't be able to handle large groups right now anyway. So I would assume it's going to be at least another month that we need to do virtual videos, then decide again.
Yeah, we were wondering whether or not we have one part that is in a unique situation, and it depends upon how they deal with it. We obviously got a large room and a smaller number of people. We could put everybody 6 feet apart if we had to, but we'd have to have the whole room. And they may need the room in order to put all of their guests 6 feet apart and make it profitable for them. So I don't know if they will want the room back for a while in order to make it, the adjustment. That's one of the things that I will have to ask them and see what they want to do. Plus, we have the other issue of, if they're really counting people, if they fill up the rest of the room and we have somebody arrive late and they are suddenly over the 25 and becoming the 26th person, even though they're going into our room where the seats are already pre-allocated, will that be okay? And we'll need to have that kind of discussion, because I don't want to end up with a situation where they fill the rest of the restaurant and suddenly start denying our members entry into a room where we've got plenty of space.
Well, plus I heard somewhere that some restaurants were going to limit the amount of time a consumer can stay in there for an hour. So
oh, really?
They may want to do that too. So that way you can get people in and people out. The more people they can get in that way too.
Well, that's good information. Also, I hadn't thought about that.
Also, for Ozonas, it's like, do they want to use part of their 25% for us when everybody else that they would have in the regular restaurant would be eating, and we don't always.
And we don't always.
Everybody don't always eat.
We're certainly taking up a lot of a lot of seats. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I guess the question is there anybody that's opposed to staying virtual through, say, the month of May and reevaluating towards the end of May if we want to look at going back in June?
Well, I'll go ahead and talk just because. I'm not opposed to waiting. I actually am a little afraid of ripping the lid off of this too early. I personally, I think that this virus has been a lot more contagious than most people think or realize or expect or are calculating. That's my personal opinion. And I only say that because I know of too many healthcare professionals that know what the hell they're doing, and they still manage to get to catch this. Whether it's even the people who are screening for it, who know how bad it is, and they're still getting infected. So we have no clue what the testing is. We have no clue what the average number of people is, per 100 that do or do not have it in any area of this city or anywhere else in this nation, except perhaps New York City. I personally do not feel very comfortable going out in public that much yet.
So I'm looking at my calendar, and what I'm thinking is maybe what we consider is staying virtual through the month of May. May the 28th would be the last Thursday of the month. So we can do a couple of things. We can stay virtual through the end of May and then vote on the 28th if we want to start meeting on June the 4th at Ozona. Do we want to do that, or do we want to say, yeah, because in that way, Mark, if we were to vote that we would like to return, you could get back with Ozona, and if they say no, then we can continue in June.
Yeah, we could certainly at least express an intent, whatever that intent is, whether that intent is to return or not to return, and on what date, just to give them kind of a heads up.
So perhaps tell them June the 4th. We can actually kind of revisit this on the 21st, and then you can reach, and then if we feel like, yes, in 2 weeks we'd be ready to go back, you could reach out to them, and then on the 28th, give us a yes or no, that yes, we can proceed with the 4th or no.
Well, what are people's feelings in general about even June 4th? Are people comfortable with that, or do you need more information before you would know?
I think we need to wait and see what happens after this first wave of people go out and see
Yeah.
Well, yeah,
what happens there.
I would agree.
We'll know a lot more later in May. So it
Yeah.
makes sense just to do this through May.
Yeah.
Well, we could always tell them that we would certainly not return before June 4th, and then
Yeah.
see where
Yeah.
we are.
Okay, so let's do that then. Let's say that we'll tell them that we won't return back before June the 4th, and then May, and then actually, Mark, you just want to tell them that you'll get back with them by June the 1st for more details as far as
Sure.
what
I
we plan to do in June.
touch with them to see how their situation changes, and if they're using that room to be able to spread people out.
Okay. So do I have a motion to continue virtual meetings through May the 28th?
Yes, I motion that.
Okay, do we have a second?
I'll go ahead and second.
Okay, do we have any discussion? Okay, all in favor, go ahead and just say aye or hold up your thumb.
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, any opposed?
Aye.
I don't think we have any opposed, so that's what we'll do. Then I guess, do we want to plan on having officer elections on May the 28th as well?
Sounds good.
Okay. So
Yes.
essentially we will be holding 2 votes on May the 28th. The first vote will be for officers. So of course, if we have contested races, then we'll have individualized votes for those. But otherwise, if we have one panel of people willing to serve, we'll vote for them, and then we'll vote on what to do with Ozona. Well, and with that, just remember that we do have officer elections coming up, obviously, on the 28th. I've been president for a year now, so I know I have to retire as president. I can be another officer, but I believe Tanya said that she would like to be an officer, perhaps maybe president.
Yeah, no.
Okay.
Da, 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 da.
I need to start small, very small.
Sergeant at Arms, not too much right now.
Yes, I'll take it.
All right, so please email me if you have any nominations or if you would like to serve in a role. and then we'll go from there. Any other comments or questions? All right, well, not hearing any, let's go ahead and hear from our vote counter, Mark Sims, who won the virtual ribbon for the evening.
The best speaker tonight was John Vessels. The best evaluator was me by default, just Rob went a little over. The best table topics participant was Don Levy. And the best of the big three was our table topics coordinator, Mark Schroeder.
Thank you.
All right, well, thank you, everybody, and see you all next week.
Well, Dagan, I have something to say to you. I think that your background looks like What's Happening. Doesn't it? Does anyone else remember that? That little couch right there in the middle?
It's pretty close, but that's apparently not correct.
That's it, All in the Family.
That's
Oh, that's a good one
Roseanne.
too.
He said-
That's Roseanne.
No,
or the
I
Connors.
know he already
Oh.
told us, but this whole
Oh.
time I've been thinking of What's Happening.
But boy, it does look like, yeah, it does
It
remind me.
does. I mean, I don't remember that they had that pattern, but I remember that little couch right there in the middle of the room. All right, y'all have a good week.
If
Oh,
there's
good
nothing
night.
else as your facilitator, I will
You too.
recording.
All right.
Okay.